Good evening, fellow morons. How are we on this unusual Tuesday night for us to be streaming?
All good.
Good, thanks.
Not a wee bit different, eh?
That's it, spicing it up. Not that we had other plans and some of us hadn't watched all the movies, but we won't talk about the person that we cannot see on the screen at the moment. There is only 4 of us on the screen just now, but it is 5 of us. We do have the voice from above with Sean. He is the higher power of the group anyway, so that makes sense to have his voice coming in over the top. This week, guys, we are in here to talk about Burns's choices plus a bonus additional movie. So, Burnsy, can you just remind us what your choices were for this week that won through the Instagram vote?
Yeah, the first one was Gone Girl, which I watched at the start of lockdown, so this is my second time watching this, and Pulp Fiction was the second one, which I thought I had watched, and it turned out I hadn't, so that was nice and refreshing for me.
Oh, that's a good start though. You've never even seen the film. You think you've seen it, but no. You've not. So, Gone Girl and Pulp Fiction, and the additional movie that we had assured you guys we were going to watch was The Fault in Our Stars, which was Sarah's choice from when we did Partners Week. We still do have one movie to come for the final partner to be watched and reviewed, which we will be doing hopefully next week. I think A Fault in Our Stars is a really good way and good place to start off. I did gather Sarah's thoughts on the movie as well, so we can put them back to you before we talk about it. But before we go into the movie itself, just to give a little update to the scores on the leaderboard from last week, because we had some big changes. Can we remember?
New number one.
There we go, we have a new number 1. So, the movies that we reviewed last week were Terminator 2, Judgment Day and Goodfellas. Terminator coming in at a 4.33 and Goodfellas coming in at a 4.79. So as the fellas just said there, we had some changes to the leaderboard. So today, give you a quick rundown of what that is. You'll see that on the screen right now. In 10th place, we have Terminator 1, followed by No Country for Old Men, old Burnsy favourite. Then in comes Jaws, Fight Club, then Terminator 2, so Arnie making a double appearance in this top 10. The Wolf of Wall Street, and knocked down out of the top 3, we do have The Shawshank Redemption. This making our top 3 with a 4.6 being 7. Second place, we have Parasite, that has been at the top ever since we started streaming, so it's finally been knocked down a peg on 4.65. And our brand new number 1, which is Goodfellas. So that is our top 10 movies. Let me just put this back onto the right screen. Now, I don't know if we're in any danger of creating a new movie into the top 10. As we can see with some of the reactions from the boys on screen. But The Fault in Our Stars is a movie that came out in 2014. It is rated a 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb. This is 2 teenage cancer patients beginning a life-affirming journey to visit a reclusive author in Amsterdam. So, before we go in and discuss it, I'd just like to share Sarah's thoughts on it. And I was quite chuffed she gave us a fair old novel, so it goes above the half a sentence that Ellie gave us describing her movie, and I hope she's not listening so I didn't get in trouble for it.
I was getting in trouble for that because she said, you only told me to give you a sentence. I was like, nah, never. Then she forwarded me the message. I was like, I just 3 sentences. That was my ass.
So that is absolutely your fault, but we'll blame Ella for it anyway. Why not? Okay, so guys, sit back and listen in. So Sarah's thoughts. I find this film to be real, relatable and raw. I think it perfectly captures the emotion and impact cancer has on a family and shows the pain of living with such a horrible condition. Compared to the book, there's a lot of detail left out, mainly around Hazel's mum's forced energy, as it isn't as intense in the book. Also, the journey of Isaac losing his second eye and conversations Hazel has with him in the hospital, and the story of Gus playing basketball at a successful level and then finding out that he's going to lose his leg, therefore comes an end to his basketball career. I think that if these were added into the film, it would have helped you bond more with the other characters, and not only Hazel and Gus, but also in the same turn they need to make this a bit that make sure there is a light-hearted scenes to balance out the sadness. When it comes to Hazel, she's amazing when reading the book. This is who I would imagined Hazel looking like, sounding like, and acting like. So we're talking about Shailene Woodley there. Her most powerful scenes for me were receiving the news that Gus had passed away and reading out Gus's actual eulogy in front of him and Isaac. Gus perfectly captured a young male with a huge ego that is in denial that his life has been taken away from him out of his own control. I think with Gus you can see that there's an unstable approach to losing his battle with cancer, but as a viewer you see his journey and see him find some peace in what he had achieved in his life. I think the film is a teenage romance with a dark undertone, but a very real one that can affect families all over the world daily. And Sarah also wanted to add in there that she does appreciate that this is not typically a movie that any one of us would choose to sit down and watch. This is a specific genre when it comes to a romance, a sadness movie, and the type of books that people that would purchase for these as well. I just want to go into my thoughts though as well on the movie. Right, I've seen this quite a few times, and especially the subject of cancer, which is something that's really close to home, in particular lung cancer. So I find this quite an emotional movie to watch. I think it is sad. A lot of it rings true for me as somebody who's, like I say, got cancer in the family, who's also got kids as well, and trying to put yourself into the position of what they're going through. I think the parents are really, really interesting from Hazel's point of view, because they do live in like a pure denial of what's going on with her life, and the mum is really over the top with her and essentially still treats her like a really young kid and is not letting her see through the rest of her life. And one of the scariest scenes for me on it is when she's talking about how Hazel's telling her mum that she remembers her saying in the hospital that she's not going to be a mum anymore. And for me at the time when I watched this, I think, fuck, that's a really, really selfish way to look at it. That your daughter's going through this horrible condition at the moment that she's got, and all you can think about is how it's going to change for you and not living in the moment for that sense. I think what Sarah was saying about the two main characters for Gus and Hazel, I love Gus. I think Gus is class. As much as he's, and I don't know how to describe his personality. He's a really, really over the top personality, but I think it ties in with the behaviours of someone who's panicking about what's going on with him. I feel like I've spoke a lot though, guys. I'm going to start letting these come in.
I feel a bit bad, but
No, you don't.
similar, no, I do, because like similar to you, like I've had cancer in my family. Most people know my dad died of cancer. I've also got children like yourself, Kyle. So the themes should kind of run, like it should be something that hits home for me. And obviously mentioned earlier on, you were saying maybe this isn't something that we would normally watch or read, but I love sad movies. Like I love being sad. I'm one of these folk. I'm a big softy. I cry at stuff all the time, man. But I think this does for sad movies what like 50 Shades of Grey does for romance. Like I just think this is like porn for sadness. It's just like, here's a sad scene, then here's a sad scene, then here's a sad. Like there's no chance for you to build up like or any sort of emotional crescendo for me. I mean, it starts off with going, hiya, I've got cancer, and then you're like, oh, hiya, I've got cancer too, and it's like, oh, here's a issue with your cancer, now there's an issue with her cancer, and now you can go. Now you're not able to go to Amsterdam, and then when you get to Amsterdam, that's shite. The guy's a wanker, and then you have a really nice moment. Oh, but he's now going to die, and then oh, the guy's got the eyes, and then he's sad again, and there's never enough let up for me. I mean, this is like. Do you know a lot of people watch like Hostel and they just think it's like gratuitously too much violence? Mm-hmm. I think this is far too like it's just. I don't know, it just feels like it's just, there's nothing real about it. There's nothing really sentimental about it for me, because it's just like, it seems to me like a thing purely designed to get people to cry. And I think because of that, like the dialogue's really sort of unnatural for me, and it just seems to have shoehorned in every single possible sad part. See what's described about the book, how you maybe get a build-up of his basketball career, then he loses his leg. Maybe you get a chance to get invested in something with a bit of story like that, but I think the way the movie does it, it just goes straight to like boom, 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 sad, sad, sad. I did find the whole Amsterdam bit a bit boring. I think for us as well, because we live in Europe, it's not that exciting to go. Like they spent 25 minutes on Frankfurt almost. Like it's like it's not that exciting. I'm going down the canal and all that. But I did find it very difficult to invest in the characters. I thought that ultimately it maybe had about as much emotional effect as like a John Lewis had, but like it just seemed really like manufactured to me. You know what I did like though? I'm going to say something nice about it. I felt like, see the sex scene where like they lose their virginity, I felt like that felt quite real. Actually was really good. It felt like a genuine, that was quite a nice emotional part of it. But then 5 minutes later he was dying again, so I mean this is all but no, I mean I do get it, I get why people like it, and I think see if you're really into sad movies and that's your thing, I sort of get it, because this is like the ultimate of that. It's just like a full 2 hours of it. But for me, like, I love, say, the Green Mile. The Green Mile takes you up and then down and then up and then down slowly. Ultimately brings you to a big, huge crescendo at the end of fucking Apologise. Or even cartoons like The Land Before Time and that get me more than this. I just feel like it's too much in your face.
So maybe like a little bit less on the cancer side of it, maybe a bit more investment in the characters. Are very similar to what I was saying about the basketball career. Understand? Like I felt the character of Isaac, who lost his eyes, was a really interesting character in the relationship that he had with his missus and throwing eggs and stuff. And then he just kind of gets put to the side while the rest of it goes on. So yeah, maybe a bit more into other people would have made it a bit of a.
It's not so much less of the cancer. It was more like maybe like the cancer. You're obviously aware that it's there. Like, see when you see movies like this before where someone's unwell or like you know that they're dying slowly, and there's quite like, you ever see Philadelphia?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No one. Aye. Right. Okay. So Philadelphia character dying slowly of AIDS, right? And that is the background to the whole movie, right? But in reality, you're following his actual life journey, whereas this just seems to be showing you all the cancer bit. Like, you never get enough. I don't think you get enough time to seeing them just being happy or just having normal days. And no, you were saying about the relationship with the mum. Like, I never saw the mum as being overbearing. All that I saw was the daughter telling her she was being overbearing all the time. Like, she would say a little thing like, stay and have your dinner. I mean, it's not a big fucking deal. Have your dinner before you go out. And then she's like, what are you going to do when I'm not here? You're just going to, like, it was too mentally extreme for me. I just felt, I found it very difficult to find it.
I also thought, like, just to talk about the parents, like, I thought when I watched it, last time that I watched it, that the dad was really, really reserved and quiet and stuff. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, is that because the mum is a bit more over the top and overbearing that he has to be that bit more stand back-ish? And then you take the scenes, for instance, when they go to Amsterdam and they come back and he's like incredibly emotional that they've come back because they've went on this trip that theoretically they shouldn't have even been on. I feel like the dad, we could have had a lot more for the dad when it came to the actual film itself.
I don't really think you get to know much about any of the characters. Really. Like, you don't really get much about any of them. I don't even know, like, you get the guy who dies, what's his name again?
Guys.
Yeah. He says at the start, oh, I want to be remembered, like, forever, as like a hero or whatever, right? But then you never get to see him, like, doing anything to attempt to be that, or, like, what was his ambition to achieve that, or, do you mean, so he just says it at the start, and at the end he goes, oh, I didn't do that. And then but no, there was nothing in it, like, normally in a movie like this, he would have had a dream that he wanted to achieve that was maybe taken away from him. And maybe, like you said, I didn't know about this in the book, there's the whole basketball story. And maybe if there was the idea that he was aspiring to be a professional or whatever it was, that would have given me a bit more investment in that. But everything just felt quite throwaway. Maybe this would have been better as an 8-episode TV series or something. If it's a full book.
Yeah.
I think it's just condensed. And the bits they've kept in of the story are just like, they've just kept in all the sad bits. No.
Just before we move on to someone else, I forgot to actually ask Sarah for her score out of 5. So you pop it in the chat or send me it in a text, Sarah. You need to give me that before we get to the end of talking about it. But Hunter, do you want to go next for me, please, mate? Let me know your thoughts on the Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah, I will. As I say, when I was setting myself up for watching this, I tried to fully immerse myself in this sad movie experience. It was a tub of Halo Top because I'm watching my waistline. It wasn't Ben and Jerry's. I got myself a blanket and I stuck myself in ready to watch this. And somewhat of what Diane was, it's just sad as fuck all the way through it. Like, there's no break from it. Like, I mean, I hold my head up. I didn't cry during it, but you could feel emotion going through it. I just said that I can understand what Sarah said. It'd been quite raw. It does hit home with some of the points as well, but it just felt like non-stop. Like, there was no. Sometimes you see other sad films even in a similar category where there's a bit of comedic. Maybe the throwing the eggs at the hoosies, that was it. But you're talking about one scene out of the whole film that isn't basically someone dying or heartbreaking eulogies or anything like that. There was just no break from it. And what I would say is Willem Dafoe's character is basically just the same guy he plays in the Mr. Bean movie, just this eccentric guy living in Europe who's a bit of a prick.
I thought he was brilliant. Willem Dafoe in it.
That's so funny, Hunter. I actually don't do I just thought Willem Dafoe looked like he was in a different movie, and acted like he was in a completely different movie to everybody else.
That was it. It was the Bean movie. The Bean goes on holiday. That was it.
Oh, that's done me, Hunter.
I honestly haven't even seen that, so I'm like, what he's talking about.
I recommend that.
Definitely.
I can understand why, if you maybe read the book, you would be a bit more emotionally involved in it. With the characters, you don't need those gaps filled in, which obviously the film has just skimmed over and just gone straight in for pow, pow, pow. Here's everything that's gone wrong in such a short space of time. But on top of that as well, again, similar to what Sarah said, it's definitely not a film I would ever go to. Maybe it's because I've got a very darkened soul and I don't feel the need to let out a greet every once in a while.
Just when line up at the
someone
weekend.
else come and shine some more positivity on the film, please.
Well, will we come to the voice from above and see what his thoughts were? Because I believe he watched this today.
I watched it today after my work. Pretty much not got very much different to say apart from. Sorry, I can't even talk. I've not got a lot different to say. Sorry, I can't communicate in English today, guys. It seems trying to say I've not got much more different to say than what's already been said. It just tries too hard to be sad. It's like it's wanting you to basically be really upset and cry the whole way through the film. As Daniel said as well, like there isn't like a build-up. Like you don't see them being happy. Because if you've seen like a build-up of somebody being really, really happy and then the world came crashing down, you would, you know what I mean, you would feel sad for them. But there's absolutely none of that. It's just like bleak after bleak after bleak scene. And obviously like the whole kind of thing with the cancer and stuff like that, it's like prevalent in every single scene, and it's just too sad, and for me, like it just makes it just has like less of an effect on me when every scene is just like overbearingly like sad and stuff like that. I didn't like the characters. Is it Gus? Is that his name?
Yeah,
he was just I really didn't like him at all. It was really annoying.
He's got far too much personality for you, though, Sean.
I like my people just to be quite mundane, like Father Stone. But even then, like it was just kind of like just too, just really annoying. I've no idea what age this the main lassie was. I don't even know her real name. She looked about 35. She was playing like a teenager and that. She like hundreds and hundreds of wrinkles. It just wasn't really believable for me at all that like these were two teenagers who been dealt with one of the world's shittest hands and stuff like that. And I just found it really, really just soppy at bits. And I know it's like a teenage love story and stuff like that, but totally no my thing. And I say I feel bad for not liking it because obviously Sarah wanted us to watch it, but like, it's just no my kind of thing at all. So I don't really know what else to say other than I didn't like it at all. It didn't even make me sad, which is probably the worst part of it. Like it genuinely didn't even make me sad because it was just overbearing how much they were trying to make you sad. It felt like it was just constant.
Poor Shailene Woodley at 23-year-old doing this movie, and Sean's got her wrapped
She's
up at
23.
50.
No way, she's 23, man. She looks about 30 odd. Mid-30s. That's unbelievable.
She's 29 now.
Fucking hell, man. I'm older than her. Jesus.
And with an awful lot more wrinkles, I'd like to add.
That's mental.
To back up Sean's point, like about the guy being annoying, like Gus, he annoyed the fuck out of me as well, because like nothing he said felt like anything a real human being would say.
Aye,
like,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Aye, like see from the very first interaction with each other, it just sounds like he's reading something off a script.
Auto cue, basically.
Aye, like a very overly elaborate script that like a student had done. So, I mean, it's just like lame.
And the bit where they were throwing the eggs at the house, and then the wee mall wife comes out, and then he's like saying, we've got like what, 4 legs, 2 eyes, this half in between us. I think you should just go back. And that just would not happen in real life. Like, it's just that, really. I just find that
every faith in the world
cheesy,
that shit like that happens in America, and just no here.
Maybe.
I've seen a lot of videos, man. The cops would have been arresting all 3 of them and pepper spraying their faces.
There would have been drive-bys.
Well, we won't go into the subject of drive-bys, but let's bring Burns in to get some of his thoughts in there, known as the emotional one of the group.
When I read the synopsis, I kind of thought I would really like this film, but nah, it's just... I think it's kind of just touching all the points you have made before, is that there needs to be like a build-up to get you emotional, I think. You can't just be expected to be sad for 2 hours or however long the film was, but just put the film as if it was trying its intention. So I agree with Daniel and Sean about Gus. Like, from start to finish, he just drove me up the wall. Like, he just came across as really like arrogant, up himself, condescending, and like even just silly things. When he kept on calling her Hazel Grace, I was just like, you're just a knob. Like, go and just like. He just, every time he was on the screen, I just wanted him off the screen, basically. And the good bits about the film was I thought Hazel's acting, Shailene Woodley, was really good throughout it. I thought she was kind of, obviously it was only her and Gus that was in the film for the vast majority of it. Isaac, Gus's friend, I thought he was quite funny at stages as well. He maybe would have been better if he was more involved in the film, because like you say, he just kind of got tossed to the side after being quite involved in the start of the film. I didn't really like the trip to Amsterdam and that. It just didn't really add anything to the film and all the stuff about the book. I think what obviously I've not read the book, but what Sarah touched on about how there was parts that was missed out. And what she's saying, if there was those parts added on, it would have made me enjoy the film better. But I just struggled to even look at. I felt a bit like Hazel when she was getting upset towards the end about Gus dying and that, like, that was a bit emotional, but at the same time, because I thought Gus came across as such an absolute tool throughout it, then I was kind of like, well, at least she'll meet somebody better now that he's away.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Fucking hell, man. I was trying to go on a bit like easy and light on it. Fucking hell.
Oh dear. Just to touch on a little scene that's missing from me as part of my trivia, that a scene that's in the book but that's absent from the movie, is that Gus and his mum are engaged in a really explicit shouting match. This would have taken place directly before Gus and Hazel were seen at the airport going to Amsterdam, and it involves information about Gus's cancer relapse that Hazel doesn't know about and stuff, which would have been, I think, such a good scene to add in, because all the points you have touched on about Gus being a frustrating character to watch, add that little bit of realism in there that he's a person, not just 5 million metaphors.
Because it was only on screen when he was with Hazel, obviously. So like maybe just a bit of him without being with her might have actually felt that actually the character might have came across better, because maybe like maybe has just got to an act and he's trying to protect her. But to me, by not telling her, I was kind of like, well, he should have actually been more open and honest. But if you actually saw the struggles that he was going through himself, then that might have made you actually feel sympathetic towards him. Because that was completely missed out, and it was kind of like it was if you could have just known the full time. He was kind of like, I just want the ball telling her, and wouldn't actually care. Whereas if you'd actually saw that the struggle he was having, then he might have came across a lot better. And made it. Whereas before it was just as if it was a lot of it seemed as if it was a big act, like the way the things he was saying in terms of how written it was, but also like his facial expressions and stuff like that. I think like a big improvement would have been if the character of Gus was better than what it was in the film.
That would also why his family went there, because it's like it was his make a list, and his mom and dad didn't get to go. Like that was one of the things I thought straight away. It's like, where's his mom and dad? He's took.
Yeah.
Well, it's his wish. It's his fucking wish. It's not for family.
And he's just had a cancer relapse, so has he no needed medical care or whatever when he's over there as well?
Whereas obviously he didn't mention it to her, but like his family would have known this. If obviously, like you're saying, Kill, in terms in the book how it's mentioned. So like, what do they just know? Are they just no bored in terms of?
I think that's the whole thing in the book is that the argument I'm guessing here that would be themed around about him actually going and being a part of this trip, and that would have been a big.
No, basically.
Probably a good fucking chapter long within a book that would. Again, you could have had a 3 to 4 minute scene with that in this movie, and that would have tied in really, really well. Guys, just before I jump into some trivia, is there anything else we want to add or thoughts?
No, I mean I really do agree with the last point you just made. So I think that's quite a glaring aspect of what we've all been saying is that see with good storytelling. See if we know that he's conflicted and we know as a viewer that he's had a relapse, he's got cancer again, and then you're waiting for her to find out. That's a much better way of doing it. Whereas it was just so flat, like you didn't even feel bad. It was strange. It just came across as strange. I wasn't even sure if he was telling the truth. Like, I thought it was built up to him saying I wasn't actually a virgin and breaking her heart.
Oh. Because
there was no hint about his cancer anywhere. So the only thing had been happening through the wee circle with the virgin and him not being a virgin anymore. And I thought that he was going to break her heart that way and say, oh, actually, I was shagging somebody else beforehand. But I
didn't believe him when he was saying about how that was his first time, because he just came across like completely different.
See with that scene with the little Don with this thing on, the impression I got for that was he shot his shot too early and it never quite got the job done, which is why he was on the line rather than out with the circle.
Oh.
But Burnsy would have been looking for that third person to come into the mix to work out she's pregnant, they didn't know who it is. Vera Farmiga's came into the equation somehow as well. Burnsy would have been
pregnant.
It'd have been a 6 out of 5 film for Burnsy there if that had happened. Just on the scene in particular where he's obviously explaining to her that he's had the cancer relapse. That's quite like a famous bench in Amsterdam that just gets stolen all the time. So every time that a bench gets put down in that location, it gets stolen. I've been out, like me and Sarah went to Amsterdam, went to find the bench, and it was a different one. I think it's been changed about 3 or 4 times since even we have been. Just some other parts of trivia I've got in there. There wasn't really much to gather in terms of trivia because it's all about the differences between the book and the movie. But when I say all about it, it's like his hair colour was different, his eyes were different, his height wasn't quite right. So I'll just leave all that out there. But one of the coolest ones I thought, which I had no idea about, it says that William Dafoe starred in Spider-Man as a Marvel villain Green Goblin. Shailene Woodley also starred as Mary Jane Watson in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but her scenes were cut.
Aye.
So she was MJ in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. There you go.
That's interesting.
It's like oh, I see that. I just literally sat and watched The Amazing Spider-Man 1 the other day. And the only other bit there was that Shailene Woodley with being the standout edition. It was because she had a real love for the book before she had auditioned for it and blew the director away of how much she was into the character, which probably ties in a lot we were saying about how well she played her part. She played it really well, apart from the fact that she's now got her anti-aging wrinkling cream on point for Sean.
I honestly just thought that she was in her 30s.
I can
It's not a big,
believe
it's not a big deal
I
at that
thought
way.
she actually looked like quite good an age for the character. It must have been son Roman Maynard Sean's accent. Accent?
Actually. But to be fair, I do have glasses, so I don't know if I was wearing them when I was watching this, actually. I don't know whether that was
You were too busy rubbing all the tears away from the inside of them, Sean. That's what it was. You just got a bit confused. So I think it's a good point to come in and score this movie. We've spoken about this movie for a lot longer than what I did think we were going to, guys. So I'm quite chuffed with how much he's given for that. I've got Sarah's score here. So Sarah has given the movie a 4. So there'll be the starting point. Daniel, we're going to come to you for the next score.
I'm going to have to give what I've got down, and I'm giving it a 1.
A 1.
Yeah, it's just sadness porn. That's what I call it. Sadness porn.
Sadness porn. I like it. I've watched it a few times. I'm going to go and score it as a 3. Good movie for me. Burnsy?
I'm going to give it a 1.5. I think that's what I scored Star Wars, and that's kind of on the same par as us. So there you go.
Oh, I promised myself I wouldn't talk about Star Wars this week.
You don't need to. You can just move on.
Hunter! In fact, before we move on, Burnsy, this or No Country for Old Men?
Both. Just this. That's.
No.
You watch something.
Hunter?
It's the Dunter Alliance is back, and I'm going for a 1 as well.
And we'll finish it on a real positive note with a voice from above.
0.5.
Oh!
What a horrible human being he is, eh? Horrible human being with a 0.5. Burnsy, do the maths. Remember, we have got 6 scores this week for when you're doing your
Aye, I knew I did that wrong there. That gives a 1.83 overall.
A 1.83 overall, and I'll just load the leaderboard up and we'll find out where that comes in.
You scroll down the bottom, Kyle.
Scroll down the bottom. It's above Bridge of Spies.
That's a joke. That is a joke.
It is above Glory, above Shutter Island, The Five Bloods, so obviously above Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and it is just below Boyhood and Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
It's done well because obviously Taylor Swift filled it up, and you not wanting to get double filled up.
Oh no, I would happily score it down if I didn't like it, but I do quite like it. So
I don't know if you're telling the truth here, Kyle. I'm doubtful. I don't like this. I think you're just scared of Sarah.
I'd watch this on my age. Have a nice wee cry. I'm secure enough in my emotions to cry, guys. I'm not like you guys. Well, no tears.
I would cry if it made me sad, but it just doesn't make me sad.
No.
I actually cried at the start of it up. I definitely cried at the start of it up when I first watched it. Sarah liked that. There you go.
You cry halfway through because it was still going on.
After that.
Listen, the only things I'll cry at is this film and Ollie scoring the winner against Bayern Munich. Anyway, let's move on to the next movie. So, next movie we're going to talk about is Gone Girl. So, Burnsy, well, will come to you first in a little second. But Gone Girl is a movie out in 2014, 2 hours and 29 minutes long. Sean would have been happy to see. It is an 8.1 rated on IMDb, and it also is sitting 199th on the top 250 list for IMDb.
Oh my god.
Daniel thinks she should be higher, I think.
Sit Daniel over there.
Mine.
So, it says here, with his wife's disappearance having become the focus of an intense media circus, a man sees the spotlight turned on him when it's suspected that he may not be innocent. And I'll give you an even cooler bit of trivia, guys. I've read this book. I don't know why.
Is that trivia on IMDb?
That's probably the only piece of
read the book.
only piece of trivia on it as well. But Burnsy, we will come to you first to get your thoughts on your choice of movie.
Right. First of all, when I put this in, I didn't think it had any chance of getting to be one of the two we watched, to be honest. I thought it was probably going out in the first round, so it was a massive surprise to be watching this again. It wasn't... I kind of had this feeling when it got selected, I really loved it at the time, and I didn't think it was going to live up to my original expectations. It was still good, but nowhere near as good as it was first watch. But I don't think it's probably the kind of film that you would go back and watch again, because I think I watched it maybe a year ago, and there's not really anything that took me by surprise. And the film, I think one of the Instagram followers had commented saying that Ben Affleck in the film was like dreadful, I'm sure. And I completely agree. Like, the first time I didn't really, because it was one of the first films I'd sort of watched in the 80s, then I wasn't really taken into, I didn't really notice actors or actresses in terms of how good, bad and different they were. But he was really poor throughout. He just seemed so wooden. And, like, I guess throughout the film that, although he's done so many things, he's, like, cheated on her with one of his students, and he'd, like, obviously made her to... He was the one that made them move to a different part of America. And it seemed as if he'd given up on his... He lost his job, and he kind of just became, like, this person who would just sit and play video games all day. Sounds like you a bit, Kyle, actually, but...
I've still got a job.
He was, like... Even, obviously... He's the one that's getting accused of murdering his wife. I didn't feel as if... I never wanted throughout the full film... I wanted him to end up getting sent down for the murder, because he just came across really badly, I thought. I don't know if you might have different issues when we go further on, but I thought Rosamund Pike as Amy, she was great throughout it. I think it helped in terms of, which we had sort of touched on about the previous film, that because you were sort of given an insight into what she was doing in terms of how she came up with the plan of making herself disappear, and obviously her husband's got no idea. Whereas for the previous one, we were talking about Gus, how like you didn't. I know it's a completely different film, but because you knew what was going on from start to finish, then it helped with the way the film was going throughout. I thought the only things that were poor about it was where she'd sort of disappeared and she went and met those two the guy and the woman. That seemed to go on a bit too much. Whereas when she meets up with her old boyfriend, who she ends up killing, I thought those scenes were really good. But she looks like a complete psycho at this point. I don't understand really how
she's a complete psycho through the whole way through it. Do you know what? I'm sorry to cut in here, but just one thing on her. You're praising her. I could not stand her acting in this movie. Honestly,
I'm the same.
She talks like this for every sentence.
And she got an Academy Award nomination with the back
don't. And we were talking earlier about Gus and Fault in Our Stars, about every phrase being a metaphor and fake, and that. That's her. This is Amy. Every line is something that's pre-planned and fake, and like her whole every sentence all the way through it just annoyed me more and more as it went on. And I want to say that I disliked both of these characters equally, both of them. I had nothing to make me like Amy, nothing to make me like Nick. Just two characters I couldn't take to at all. Sorry, I
didn't spot her. I didn't spot the way she was acting, to be fair. But I don't know. It seems as well that there's always guy actors that I hate. I don't know if I always see actresses as prejudice. But like the bit where she'd obviously fake the pregnancy, and then it turns out at the end that the killing of the ex-boyfriend, and then when she returns home covered in blood. Like, her husband obviously knows, like, I think he knows all the way through it, really, that she's just... He must have not seen her as a complete psycho until she actually goes away, and then he figures out all these clues that she's done, and she's actually gone completely. But I did still like the film, but there's not much else I've really got to add to it, but I just think it was the two sort of big down points was Ben Affleck in it, and... It was a wee bit too long, But I don't think there was anything they needed to add into the storyline. They could have just shortened it a wee bit, because it did drag in a wee bit with her being away in the sort of campsite area. I just don't know what that really was supposed to actually do, because it just seemed a bit pointless. Obviously, she loses the money, but that's literally it. Like, there wasn't anything else that you took from that added to the film.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. That maybe short of that. I think that part was kind of crucial to her storyline, though, because it changed her plan. So her plan was to disappear. She planned to kill herself, and he was going to go down for it. That was what was going to happen. But then they have to put in the fact that she gets robbed and she has to change her plans, and she decides just to kill somebody else. I do think, though, it's kind of, it's very clever in the way that it's done. Like, it's made her out to be some sort of like criminal genius with the plan that she's had and how she was stitching everybody up, and she's like, it's like the ultimate revenge that she's having because she feels shitty about the choices that she's made alongside her man throughout her marriage. Do you know what I mean? There's, I don't know, she just frustrated the life out of me watching this, and you can't really sympathise with either of them. I don't know how to, because she's just as much of an arsehole as he is, and it's probably the only things I can really add to it. It is quite a long movie.
I was just going to say at the ending, Kyle, it's like, that's what I did feel as well. Like, kind of at the end where he's kind of stuck with her because she's pregnant, but you're kind of like, well, you actually both just deserve each other. Like,
but do you not think that it has a lot of calling to probably modern relationships where people are too consumed of what other people are going to think and say about them, that they're going to live this unhappy life to appease these others and put a front onto people, because he knows fine well that he wants absolutely nothing to do with her, but he's going to commit the next 18 years of his life to her because of this pregnancy. But be the bigger man and actually deal with the situation and move on from it. Anyway, let's take the voice from above in.
I like it.
Full stop. Right, Hunter, you're next.
I don't really understand. I'm pretty sure that Daniel's going to give me a list of reasons to counter this, but I don't really understand. For me, there's not really a lot to hate on in this. It's no like amazing. It's no like 5 out of 5, absolutely tremendous. But it's got a good story. Obviously, it's one that you'll remember the twist no matter how many times you watch it anyway. But even knowing the twist and stuff like that, it's set out quite good that she's the victim in the first half. I agree with Burnsy. Ben Affleck's fucking shocking in this. He's the big downside. He's not believable that his wife's went missing, and he's not believable for the fact that he has been accused of having something to do with it, when obviously he's innocent. He doesn't come across as somebody that is innocent and that wants people to think he's innocent. He's just absolutely horrible in this. But apart from that, I liked it, and I liked it the first time I watched it, and I liked it the second time I watched it, and I'll probably like it the third time that I watch it, whenever that is. But no, it was really good. But the first half, she's put it out to be, obviously it's all about her, and you don't really know that it's part of her elaborate plan to get him basically the death penalty and stuff like that, and he's just going to kill herself. And then the film just totally flips, and you just, because there was the wee scene where he was going out all the time, and she had mentioned about wanting kids, and then he pushed her against the stairs. So at that point, you know, obviously, if the first time you've seen it, if you hadn't read the book and you know nothing about it, you would think, oh, he's definitely got something to do with this, and then it just totally flips on its head when you see her driving across the bridge and she's chucking her pens out the window, and it's like, obviously, you realise that she's alive and that it's part of her plan to get him death penalty. It doesn't feel like a 2.5 hour long film for me. The bit that, like, towards the end, obviously, because I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that's, or I mentioned in the film, I can't remember where I've seen it, but she's got schizophrenia. Is that right?
I didn't notice that.
Pretty sure she does. It's alluded to somewhere, or I read it somewhere, I can't remember. But that kind of ties in with the fact, obviously, because she'd accused an ex-boyfriend of rape, and then she was basically doing it again to, can't remember his name at the end, her ex-boyfriend, but she was taking the wine bottle and stuff like that and acting it all out. So obviously she's got mega mental issues that kind of, you start to find out more and more about as the film goes on. And I can even understand in terms of why he was going to stay with her, because, again, obviously it's the nationwide news in America. he was made it to be a hate figure at first, then he was loved because she came back alive, and obviously he wasn't guilty, and then if he did leave her, it would effectively have just ruined his life anyway as well, because he would have been absolutely hated. So I can understand that from that point of view. Again, it ties in as well with him going to the sperm bank to get his sperm bank. He's got to the clinic to get tested and stuff, so that's how she's managed to fall pregnant and stuff like that. So I just think it all kind of ties in. I don't know, it's just one of those films that I've seen people absolutely shit on, but I don't know, I just like it.
Just to jump in a wee sec there, Sarah put in the chat here, guys, saying thanks for watching and totally get all your opinions on it, and also understand it's definitely not a lads film. I actually thought you were going to go in a lot harder on this, so I'm actually surprised, but thanks for letting me pick films.
That's what she's saying now, but when we come off this, she'll be saying you horrible stuff that you'll be telling.
There'll be voice notes galore coming to you guys calling you names under the sun, like our standard. Just to come back into what Sean was saying there about Ben Affleck, I'm actually the opposite end, guys. I thought he was quite good in this. I thought he plays the no really arsed interested man quite well. I thought he doesn't love her. He's not actually arsed. He's no panicking. There's no point in the movie where you even get the thoughts that he cares that she's not there. He's probably happier if she's gone. But I think that kind of comes across from Ben Affleck's character. I took him as just being like a guy who's totally disinterested in it. He's going through the motions because that's what you do. That's what's expected. And
he doesn't even go through the motions, though.
No, he was though. He's turning up to the stuff and he's standing there and he's saying a quick piece. So I'll come back. I miss your cool sound. See you later. There's your mum and dad. They're going to talk now. And I think he played that pretty well. I thought that was the whole point of his character, that he's so disengaged from her and anything to do with her that he's no arsed. Just silence after that, guys.
Sometimes just because of silence. Obviously, Kyle doesn't like Rosamund Pike. Sean and Bonzi don't like Ben Affleck. I don't like a single fucking person in this film.
I liked one person at least.
I'll touch on that trivia later. I know who you're referencing. just to jump in there at that point.
No, it wasn't Emily Ratajkowski because Laura watches this and I don't know who that is.
Right, I'll read. I'm going to read out a piece of trivia.
She's on your Instagram.
I'm going to read out a piece of trivia that David Fincher cast Emily Hunter. What was her surname?
Ratajkowski, whatever it is. The bird from Bob Lines.
So you've heard. He cast her on the recommendation by Ben Affleck. Fincher admitted that he had no idea who she was until Affleck told him to watch her appearance in Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines music video where she is fully naked. Fincher was then impressed by her work ethic during filming, and because according
to being code for bangers.
Anyway, so she was hired purely on the basis of a music video where she was wearing no clothes because Ben Affleck wanted to have an affair with her in the movie.
That's why you think Ben Affleck's more realistic.
No, that was even the character I liked.
Liar. It made when I read that, it made me think of Vince McMahon in the wrestling during the Attitude Era. Anyway, we'll come to Daniel.
I honestly think this is up there. I wrote down here this is up there with Dark Crimes and The Last Airbender for me, of the stuff we've watched. I fucking hate this. Genuinely. I hate the first minute to the last minute of this 2.5 hours, man. Like, it's do you know what it comes across as to me? Like a really, like a straight to DVD or like an afternoon Channel 5 thriller with B-movie actors that my mom would watch growing up. Like, it's just paint by numbers pish. Like, I don't understand. It astonishes me that David Fincher directed this. Like, because David Fincher makes like amazing movies, and I just don't get it. Like, I just think every character's stupid. None of them are believable. And the whole premise of this film is just that women are crazy. That's essentially the whole fucking premise. And it's a bit shit. Like, it's a bit shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's the only thing I take away from it. I don't understand what else you're supposed to get for it. Like, it's just a woman being crazy. And the guy being really relaxed about it and going, well, she's crazy. It doesn't matter. She's just fucking crazy. But, and then the whole Neil Patrick Harris character is horribly miscast. Like that's the
Oh,
worst.
aye.
Like,
Yeah.
fuck me, man. Like, he just like there's nothing about him came across as any sort of believable character. Being at his fancy house, and you can tell that this is. I don't know who the author is, right? But I'm assuming this is a first or second novel of this author, because it's got all the sort of tropes you get in quite a lot of novels where they think it's a really clever spin and twist that they're doing, but it's just something that's been done a million fucking times. Like, oh, she actually sat and used different pens to write the diary, and she only did it all in a couple of days. Like, fucking lame. Like, really shit. I don't actually have much and specifically negative to say. I just don't enjoy anything about this. Like, the twist didn't surprise me. It wasn't exciting. Wasn't enjoying it. 2.5 fucking hours, man. Like, there was no way this needed to be anywhere near as long as it was. I think all the acting's shite. A shit semi, a shit story. Lazy.
It was written by Gillian Flynn, and it was her third and last book that she wrote.
You can tell it's someone so. I'd imagine that's someone who that's obviously really successful. Do you mean so quick while you're ahead?
She's basically been writing novels until she got one turned into a film, and that was her fucking happy days.
So she had 2 other novels, one called Dark Places and her first one called Sharp Objects, that became a HBO adaptation starring Amy Adams.
Bet that. Like, I don't want to be too negative, but like this is.
I think you said anything positive.
This is not the worst one that I've seen. Definitely one of the worst we've seen in any movie club.
There we go. Let's bring in Hunter and his thoughts on this movie.
Daniel has pretty much stolen every single bit of my thunder with that review.
Oh man, sorry, Hunter.
pretty much near enough word for word. Apart from the only difference that I had was I thought the twin sister was, if you had to pick one character that was relatable and likeable within the film, it was her. Pretty much every single other thing that I've written down your fucking ticked off. The main stick for me with some of you was Neil Patrick Harris. All they've basically done is just take his character for How I Met Your Mother and thrown it into this film with no queers. That could have been done so much better, but it just did not work at all in the slightest. That being said, I do like the concept of the film. It's just done so bad. Like, I love my true crime stuff, whatever, and you kind of get a bit invested, I think, the first time you watch it, but the second time it just loses a lot, and then you realise that it's just not that good, and true crime is better reading true stories because shit like that actually happens. No, that this doesn't happen, and it never will happen, which is why reality is a lot better than this.
So you didn't really have much to add there. I think everyone else is shouting this very excellently. Let me jump onto some trivia there. So one of the things you'll notice in the film is Ben Affleck's weight fluctuates massively throughout the movie. This is because he was filming Batman v Superman, so he goes from being fairly average built to being very muscular, and then back again. So it doesn't obviously match up when it goes into filming, which is a really, really poor way to direct it. Then I suppose if
Maybe you shouldn't have just bothered filming this one then.
well, he should have maybe left it for the 3 other people here that were considered for the role. The movie. No.
Oh.
The movie was originally written for Tom Cruise.
The thing you mentioned Tom Cruise for a part, I can never imagine Tom Cruise doing it. He's just Tom Cruise. He's never a character, is he?
I think with the people that are linked for playing the character in Nick Dunn, obviously Ben Affleck getting it, Tom Cruise there. Another 2 names that are in there before I give you the last one are Ryan Reynolds and Brad Pitt. So Brad Pitt apparently was incredibly close to taking this role. They're all the same person to me, and like this, they would have played this role any differently. Ryan Reynolds would have added maybe a bit more too much comedic to it. But the other person on the list here that was considered was Seth Rogen. I just don't see it at all.
No, I don't see that.
And for Amy, I mean, Hunter touched on it earlier. So Rosamund Pike got a nomination for a best performance by an actress in a leading role. That year's winner went to Julianne Moore for Still Alice. But I honestly thought Rosamund was awful in it. I just couldn't take to her character at all.
I'd read something that they basically for the first hour they had to dub her audio in over the top, and if you've got to do that, then you're not doing your job properly, so how the fuck are you getting an Academy Award nomination?
Well, it also mentions, I never actually took a note, but I remember reading that it said in the trivia that she was cast because of her misleading look in terms of her age. So you could think that she looks younger than what she is and older at the same time. So depends how many wrinkles she's got there for Sean to be classed in that one.
Is there not just a thing called CGI you can edit that shit anyway?
Well, you can edit it really well. Just look at The Irishman.
That's true.
Well, the other names that are on the list that were in line before her for the character of Amy Dunn was Charlize Theron, Natalie Portman, Emily Blunt, Rooney Mara, and Olivia Wilde.
Can I just add something there, Kel, as well? I read after watching the film that they said they were looking at maybe making a sequel, but it's that long ago now, so I'm sure Daniel will be happy that's not going ahead.
A sequel? How are you making a sequel to this?
I don't know. I didn't actually read into it. I just saw the wee paragraph. I didn't actually read and see what they would plan, but...
Well, guys,
maybe he faked his kidnapping the next time.
Gone guy.
Gone guy.
Well,
You know, gone is just an after party after the pub. On Saturday, that's it.
oh geez. Well, guys, for this a movie that's sitting in the top 200 of IMDb's top 250, let's get down to scoring it then. Burnsy, we'll start off with you.
I'm going to give it a 3.75.
3.75. Sean?
I'm just going to follow Bunzy and go the same, 3.75.
3.75 coming in from Sean as well. I'm going to come in and score it a 2 with no context given after that. Hunter?
I've went for a 1.75 again. I think similar. I did enjoy it slightly more than this the first time I watched it, and obviously the sister got some brownie points for the movie. But apart from that, I think that's a very generous 1.75.
I think Daniel's just left then. He's like, not had enough of these scores. I'm fucking gone. Gone, guy. Here's part 2. Right, second half of Dunter, give us your score.
0.5. Hate it. I really hate it.
What was that
I
point?
think by the time we get up to 250 films, that this won't be in our top 200.
So I went a bit there, Dan. You say 0.5 or 0.75?
0.5.
He's trying to coax an extra bit out of you there, Daniel. See that?
I know.
Not getting it.
Right, that's a 2.35 overall.
A 2.35. And that now takes this movie above Knives Out, American Gangster, Us, 300, The Conjuring, and it puts it just below The Fugitive and Up. Just below Up. So this comes in at, this will be 47th on our list, guys. 47th.
I could do that.
Is that a generous scoring, Daniel?
Wait a minute, so think about it this way, like Sean gave Terminator 2 a 4, so this is only a 0.25 less than Terminator 2. Fuck you, man.
What was it you said last week, Daniel, that you score it on the basis of the film you're watching rather than what you've scored previous films before?
I'm
That was your
comparing
own words there, I'm sure.
That's how you. I'm not saying that. So you shouldn't think about that when you're scoring it. But now that you have scored, you've got that 0.25 away to Terminator 2. Fucking mental.
I'd rather watch Gone Girl, if I'm honest with you.
So you should have given it a then.
At least we're consistent at being non-consistent, guys.
Man.
let's move on to our final movie, which is Pulp Fiction. So, Pulp Fiction, let me get the little synopsis. That was out in 1994. It is 2 hours and 34 minutes long, so 3 films over 2 hours this week, Sean. How did that feel?
Well, considering that I hadn't watched any by Sunday, it's been absolute murder.
Stress through the roof there. This has an IMDb rating of 8.9 out of 10, making this movie 8th on the IMDb Top 250 list. It says here the lives of two mob hitmen, a boxer, a gangster and his wife, and a pair of diner bandits intertwined for 4 tales of violence and redemption. Directed by everybody's favourite director, Tarantino. Bunzy, you thought you had seen this, then you hadn't seen it, now you have seen it. Give us your thoughts.
I really enjoyed this. It was kind of one of the ones that I had put on my list that I was hoping that it would get through. I don't want to sort of go through everything because I think you'll probably have similar comments on this one to me, I would just expect. But for the very start, when they were talking about foot massage stuff, and that first scene with John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, I was like, oh my god, Sean's got Tarantino on his feet. But the fact that we're talking about feet massages whilst they're about to go through and shoot folk, I'm just like, how random is this? And then when I thought John Travolta was brilliant in this, I think it's the first film I've watched with him. It was weird how he was like shooting up before he goes and meets his boss's wife. I just thought that was just so bizarre. Like, if he's going to be like basically being told, like, go and look after her, like take her away whilst away with work or something, I can't remember. And then I think I'm just, every time now when I see a Tarantino movie, when I see feet, I notice it all the time now. So like, you had the scene where Uma Thurman's putting her shoes on, he's got her feet out. then they go and they're barefoot dancers. So even Travolta's got his feet out. I don't know if it's just a guy thing that likes feet now as well. But anyway, enough about feet. It was like when she has the overdose, from the point that John Travolta meets Uma Thurman until the end of that part of the story, I thought that was probably my favourite part of the film. When it moved on to Butch and the Boxer, but that I'd struggled with that bit to begin with because I just didn't really. I think at first I wasn't really seeing where the story was going to go. Just this boxer that's going to like intentionally put money on himself betting and then disappear. But then obviously it carries on throughout quite far into the film, and then it does actually make sense why there's all this backstory to it. I thought a couple of weird bits about that. It was like when he goes back to his house to find the watch, and he's obviously thinking everybody's on his tail, so he goes into his kitchen and makes himself some toast or whatever he makes himself. It's like, I can't imagine if you think somebody's going to come away and shoot me. I'm just going to make myself some lunch. And then he shoots Vincent, which I was quite gutted about because I was wanting him more involved in the film. And he just leaves the gun lying there in the kitchen. It's like, if you think folk are after you, take a gun with you to protect yourself with going forward. I thought that was bizarre. And then I'll just skip to the ending part. I thought that the final scene in the cafe, like, because obviously that's where the film starts as well. I thought that was brilliant in terms of how there was so much dialogue, and it seems as if they went on for ages. But it wasn't some scenes go on for far too long. You think and go and just actually get on with it. It was I was engrossed like the full time of that. And then so one more thing I was going to say is I thought the guy that played Winston, he just came across so cool. I thought he was awesome in it as well. But no, I really enjoyed it. I don't think there was really anything that there wasn't really any downsides, I don't think, to the film for me. I thought it flowed really well, even though there was kind of a mishmash of 2 or 3 different stories going on at one point. But I didn't feel as if I was ever losing my concentration or losing my place, which I thought I would have looking back at it. But it was really good from start to finish. I'll pass it over to Daniel now because I think he's going to say complete opposite to
you. No, I'm not going to say the opposite to you. Do you know what it is with this film? I've seen this quite a lot, and when I was growing up, this was like an iconic movie to watch when you're a teenager. And when I first watched it, I thought this was the coolest fucking movie that had ever been. Like, it's so cool, like, all the characters are really cool. I think this is maybe what Tarantino, it's why he's been pushed to the sort of front all the time, is how dialogue heavy this is, despite there being so much action. Like, most movies you'll get to see a little, maybe 30 seconds of one thing that's going on and it'll move on to something else. Whereas you'll get a solid fucking 15 minutes of one conversation. And normally I do really enjoy it. I think I've maybe just seen this too much. It doesn't give the same, it's been a few years since I last watched it, but it doesn't really have the same impact on me now. But yeah, I still love the start. The start just reminds me of that Fun Loving Criminal song more than this movie. When she says that she's going to kill every motherfucker last one of them in the diner. If anyone you fucking move. I love that bit. I'm still at the Burnsy. It loses it a bit for me with the whole Butch boxer. He's got to throw the fight, but then he doesn't throw the fight. That's a bit of a contrived story that's been done a million times. But then as it comes back in, I do like it again. So I really like the opening scene, Ezekiel, when basically the time Sam Jackson's on screen. I think that's kind of where my favourite parts of this film are. I think he's fucking fantastic. Probably still, to me, he's had so many iconic parts, but this is still like his most iconic film part for me still is this movie. Samuel Jackson plays a better part in a lot of films, because he's by far the in this, I think. But yeah, no, it's good. I don't get as carried away with it as a lot of people. I don't think it's like, I don't know. I mean, but did you say it's in the top 10 on IMDb?
Yeah, it's currently 8th.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's hard to argue. I understand why folks love it. I'd say I don't love it, but I do like it. What do you think, John? Let's hear about the feet.
I've not really got that much to say about the feet because obviously Buns already covered it. I was laughing when they were talking about the wee kind of opening scene, not the opening scene bit, but when you first met John Travolta and Sam Jackson, they were talking about the foot massaging the lotion and stuff. It's just comical. He's not even hiding it anymore. And when him and Uma Thurman were dancing, and obviously, of course, she had to take her fucking shoes off. Why would she? Why would she have to wear footwear? Putting that to one side, it's probably the one I've only seen this once before, and I think I watched it first when I was like 16, and I just have always hated it and thought I absolutely detested it. But it was probably a bit more enjoyable when I watched it the other day. Similar to you guys, I had no care in the world for Bruce Willis in this. I loved John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson on screen together. I thought they were really good. But I've been quite kind of vocal against Tarantino recently, and this is probably because just feels like we've done him to death. And I hope that this is the last Tarantino film that we get for a long time. I don't think there's that many left that we have to cover anyway. But for me, it's one of the more enjoyable ones. Is the most enjoyable one that we've watched of his recently for me anyway. The scene with Uma Thurman's overdose and he takes him to the house and they get the what is it? The needle with what is it called again?
Adrenaline.
Aye, yeah, that was absolutely brilliant, that scene. But for the film as a whole, I just thought there were bits of it that I just could leave, like the boxing stuff. I wasn't a fan of at all. I would have just liked to have seen Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson on the screen together for about the majority of the film. Where we go, but for as much as I don't really like Tarantino, it was alright. It's probably the highest praise I can give him.
Just alright.
Aye, it's no my cup of tea. Like, I'm, as I said, obviously I've watched more of Tarantino's films. I've seen his films before we've done this, and I thought that it's something that I liked, but watching Kill Bill really has kind of like sealed it for me. I really didn't like Kill Bill at all.
There we go. Just to touch on a little bit, guys, you mentioned Bruce Willis has been mentioned a few times. So originally this movie was only cost $8 million to make. The movie only cost $8 million to make, but the initial budget was a lot lower until Bruce Willis was then added to the cast. After he'd had a string of domestic flops, he was seen as a box office draw for overseas. So it says that the $5 million went in to pay the actors and actresses, and then the film was already profitable with a worldwide sales because of the strength of Willis's presence in it, and they made $11 million after they put his name on the posters and put it out there. So as much as he is such a strange part in it, he was integral to the whole campaign for it going forward. Bruce Willis's what I find for this movie is obviously it's 4 different stories going on in a jumbled up timeline, and I sat and looked at it today chronologically, and I prefer it chronologically when I read through it, because Burzie's talking about there, like when Vincent John Travolta's character gets killed, he was quite gutted at that point in the film. That's literally one of the last scenes. Like, that's towards the end of what happens over this 3-day period that Pulp Fiction's filmed over, because it essentially should end with Bruce Willis and his missus riding off on that motorbike, and that should be the end of the film. But obviously jumps back and forward a little bit. I'm very similar to Daniel in this sense, where I've seen this movie to death. Must be in double figures for seeing this movie. It's, for me, in that category of movies that I can put on in the background whilst I'm playing FIFA, and I can enjoy it. I don't need to pay too much attention to it with seeing it before, obviously. I don't know, I think, again, it's these films where you want a little bit more of it. Like, I wanted to know more about Marcel Wallace's character and the background and why he's this multi-millionaire, and I wanted to know more about the Wolf. The Wolf is the coolest guy in the whole film. Like, he's... The part
He's on direct line adverts.
I was going to say, he was cool until he did the fucking advert.
Did he, man? It's when he says, he's on the phone, he's like, I'm 30 minutes away, I'll be there in 10, and he arrives before the 10 minutes, and he's just flown it around the corner and he arrives in this house. It's like, how's that? And why is that? And then Samuel L. Jackson's reaction to getting told the Wolf is going to come, he's like, oh, fuck. Everything's sorted now, like, life's over, like, life's gravy, it's great, let's sit down and chill out. For me, that, like, again, give me more, maybe a little bit more on this. When I watch this now, knowing that the crossover that's supposed to be between Reservoir Dogs and this movie in terms of the Vegas, I want more of that. I want to know more about them as a brothers set. I think that'd be quite cool. The part of the trivia I've got there, that Mr. Blonde, aka Vic Vega, played by Michael Madsen, is the brother of Vincent. Tarantino had a spin-off film in development titled The Double V Vega, which was a prequel to these movies, but he's left it that long that he had to scrap it because they're now too old to do prequels. CGI them, like we said, like The Irishman.
Yeah, like The Irishman.
There's loads of really cool scenes in this, and that are really weird. One of my favourite ones that involves Bruce Willis is when they've been obviously taken in by the Gimp and the bad guy for the mask, and they've got he's going through the room picking his different weapon. To me, that's like a computer game. Like, he's upgrading his weapon as he's going through there, and he decides on the sword, and he's going to come back, and it's quite a telling bit that the one guy that he's running away from, absolutely petrified from, desperate to get away, comes back to save him, settle his beef, and it's like quite a cool moment in that sense of it, where he could have just left him, but he knew what was happening to him, which I don't know what to go into detail of, and he's like, actually, I'm going to go back and I'm going to help him, I'm going to kill these guys, sort of thing. What I did find out was funny is that Bruce Willis, being probably the only non-professional killer there, kills more people than anybody.
Aye.
When you say the bit you didn't want to touch on, did you mean when he was getting shagged up the arse? Is that what you were talking about?
To put it as subtly as that, yes.
The sodomisation of Marcel Wallace.
But it's actually quite...
That would be a better name for this film, the sodomisation of Marcel Wallace.
Do you know what I always think? Like, getting pitched that as like Ving Rhames, this is what's going to happen to you in this movie. You're going to be wearing this, you're going to be bent at a table like this, and here's the bad guy for the mask is going to do that to you. And like, he's been like, sound, let's crack on with that. And he gets selected by a eeny meeny miny mo, which to me is freaky as anything. Like, that's a selection process, and that's what happens. But fair play, these guys got what was coming to them. I wanted to know, again, like, let me see Ving Rhames torture this guy, because he's like, I'm going to go medieval on him and stuff. And I was like, oh, sound. And then that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hunter, we'll bring you into this one, mate.
Again, I think I'm probably going to be touching things that other folk have said, but I enjoyed this film. Again, I've seen it before, but it'd been a while since I'd seen it, so that was a chance to sort of enjoy it all over again. I love the whole intertwining of the stories and the timeline and it look back. It reminds me of kind of what the stuff you were told when you're doing creative writing at school. It's like start at the end there or start and work your way back and all through it. So, and I think because of the way the film timeline lapses out rather than the chronological timeline, that's how Bruce Willis's story gets lost, I think, and it loses a bit of credence because it's the ending and it's not at the end. So I think that's why. And then the fact that you end up with Samuel Jackson, Don Travolta back in that cafe, I think that again steals away so much as well because you're like, oh shit, that is so cleverly well done. And I think possibly that's why Bruce Willis's story gets lost. And I think even then, because of the way it is, it doesn't really add anything more to it. Again, apart from the fact that maybe you've seen obviously Marcel Wallace's character as this big tough multi-millionaire gangster who's got all these guys and basically he's helpless until Bruce Willis comes. The fact of all that he's got in that given moment of time where Bruce Willis comes in with a sword, that he's pretty much defenceless and so vulnerable, and it takes for a guy who he was wanting dead 10 or however long that is, because apparently that whole thing happens in the space of a couple of hours where his missus is out for pancakes.
She's enjoying.
Right.
She's just upset that she's not getting blueberries and her man's just about getting
I
sodomized.
know. Again, but Samuel Jackson, John Travolta, both outstanding. I mean, this film is, if you're to epitomise the 90s and a handful of films, this would definitely be up there. It's pop culture, it's so quotable. The soundtrack, it's been referenced and copied so many more times over. It is genius, and possibly at its time, it's maybe not up in that upper echelons now. If you go back and compare it with stuff that's really come out since, but it is so well done. And also, I don't know if you thought, but you see Tarantino's character in the film, that's what I just imagine him to be like in real life, just some uptight, posh wanker that you wouldn't get tired of fucking punching.
I'm not a fan of that.
For all that he's made some iconic films and characters, I bet if you were to sit down and hear, I've not listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, but I bet you if you were to sit down and hear a conversation with him after 2 minutes, you'd be like, mate, just shut up, please.
I had to turn that episode off. Like, he's unbearable. I don't really understand why he needed to put himself in the film. Like, that's pure ego fucking stuff. I hate folk with egos. He's got an ego.
I think at this point of his budget, I think I don't think they had that much of a budget for actors. So I'm pretty sure he threw himself in there. Like, he didn't cast it for himself, essentially.
Well, maybe he should have spoke to Jake Gyllenhaal and played himself as a dying leopard or something like that. Well, let me just jump in with some trivia then, just add some details in. So I've got director's trademarks here, Sean, which you'll be glad to know about. It says Quentin Tarantino, director trademark, feet. Uma Thurman is barefoot for most of this movie, and the cab driver Esmeralda does not have shoes on. Is that?
I never spotted that.
Yeah, I'm watching it looking out for it because I did the trivia beforehand, and then I was like, but you don't see her feet. Like, what?
So basically, that's just for his own personal pleasure, knowing that she's driving that car without any socks or shoes.
So he essentially made her walk in and out of the car with no shoes on just to please himself. What do you think?
I'm telling you.
Metaphorically and physically.
See, in like 5 years' time, we're going to be talking about this guy the same way that you talk about like Harvey Weinstein and all that. This guy's like an absolute beast. Honestly, telling you right now. See on NBC News, they will come back and they will show this clip, and I will be made famous for this.
That's a ticket to the next time, man.
Guys, if you'd like to clip that in the stream as well, that would be ideal.
Harvey Weinstein produced this film as well.
I know.
Everybody's big, massive letters at the start of the film, and you're like, this is just the old pals alliance. This.
He's absolutely like one of the dirty Hollywood guys. His name will be Dirt in 5 years' time. I can't wait for it.
Well, listen, guys. The word "fuck" was used 265 times in the movie. The role of Vincent Vega was originally and exclusively written for Michael Madsen. Tarantino had been working on the script for 7 months, and even though Madsen knew of Tarantino's plans, he did express a desire to play it, but then he had already signed up to play the role of Virgil Earp and Wyatt Earp. I don't even know what that is. So he was unable to commit to the film, so this is a decision he later regretted. But I do obviously have a list of names of people that were in there. There's actually a leaked list of every single actor considered for each role in this movie, which was leaked, but it's got like Samuel L. Jackson was in line for like 6 different roles he was considered for, and it's quite a cool list to look through. It's massive, so I've taken a couple of highlights out of it that I thought were quite interesting. The role of Butch, so Bruce Willis's character, was originally meant to be given to Matt Dillon. Thoughts?
He was pretty young at that point.
So he was supposed to be an up-and-coming boxer.
Aye, he was very, very funny.
And they changed it and offered it to Bruce Willis, who was disappointed that he wasn't offered the role of Vincent. Bruce Willis wanted to be Vincent. So other characters that were in line to play Butch were Sylvester Stallone, Johnny Depp, and for a boxer, and everybody's favourite, Nick Cage.
I think Mickey Rourke would have been good in that part.
Yep.
Aye.
Give you
That was my
that. The 2 ones that jumped out for Jules was Lawrence Fishburne, who's essentially I just see as Samuel L. Jackson version 2.
What a racist bastard.
And move on to the next one.
Because that happened. You've seen Samuel L. Jackson being interviewed about that. He gets mistaken for what's his face, Morpheus to the Matrix, Lawrence Fishburne. He gets mistaken for him all the time. And there's a famous clip. I'll send it in a group chat after this of him being interviewed, and they're asking about how he enjoyed being in the advert at the Super Bowl, the halftime advert at the Super Bowl, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I'm not Lawrence Fishburne." So I was like, it's funny, like, and here's a funny story he told on Graham Norton. He said he was in a Glasgow taxi. He came to Glasgow on holiday. He came to Scotland on holiday. And he was in a taxi back to the airport, and he said, the taxi driver said to him, "I've had all 3 now." He's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I've had you, I've had Samuel L. Jackson, I've had Lawrence Fishburne all in my taxi." And Samuel L. Jackson's like, "Oh, see what?"
Fuck's sake, man. That was a good advert. Come to Glasgow. The other actor that was in line for Jules was Eddie Murphy.
I mean, it's hard because sometimes these comedic actors, they can just do it and it just works sometimes, but I still can't imagine it.
The other actors, so Vincent Vegas, obviously I touched on Michael Madsen. James Gandolfini was lined in there. One actor that apparently was extremely upset about not getting the role of Vincent Vega outside of Bruce Willis was Daniel Day-Lewis, campaigned for it.
Oh, wow.
But Miramax were pushing for Sean Penn to be Vincent. They all could work for me.
Aye, I'd say that.
They're all good actors.
And
Daniel Day-Lewis and this at all.
Be interesting. And for Mia Wallace, there was Isabella Rossellini, Meg Ryan, Michelle Pfeiffer, Burnsy favourite Daryl Hannah, and the one that was originally offered before it went to Uma Thurman was Jennifer Aniston.
Quite an easy part to play, I think.
Sorry?
I think it's quite an easy part to play.
Well, they said that Uma Thurman turned it down originally. Didn't want to do it, but then Tarantino read her the full script over the phone to convince her to take the role. So she probably knew that she had to get her feet out and just wanted him off the phone. Well, that kind of brings us into the trivia for there. We obviously touched on, we never touched on, the Oscar side of it. So it was a winner for Best Writing with a screenplay. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor in a Leading Role with Samuel L. Jackson, with John Travolta, Best Actor in a Supporting Role with Samuel L. Jackson, Best Actress in a Supporting Role with Uma Thurman, Best Director with Quentin Tarantino, and Best Film Editing as well. Do we remember what other movies were in the Oscars for that year?
Have we spoken about
Schindler's
this?
List, maybe, 94.
So the
94, Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks was the winner for Best Actor for Forrest Gump.
Did that win Best Movie as well?
Best Picture, just the way it does this is dead weird on here. Got Best Director, so Robert Zemeckis got Best Director for that. And Best Picture, Forrest Gump, yep.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption was in that year as well. So there we go. That brings us towards the end of Pulp Fiction. If anyone's not got anything else I want to add. There we go.
No, good.
Burnsy, let's start us off with your score then, please, my man.
I'm giving it a 4.5.
4.5. Sean?
I'm going to give it a 3.
3 from Sean. Daniel?
I'm going to give it a 3.75.
3.75 from Daniel. I'm going to throw it in as a 3.5. Hunter?
Solid 4 for me.
Solid 4. So, will this break into the morons top 8? Never mind being up there for IMDb's top 8.
Overall, it's a 3.75.
3.75. Just want to say, Sean, you scored Gone Girl a lot higher than you did Pulp Fiction.
I did.
Interesting.
Huh?
Um,
I prefer Pulp Fiction with less feet.
Bunsy, did you say 3.75, yeah?
3.75, yeah.
So this joins 2 other movies on 3.75, which are Short Term 12 and Pan's Labyrinth. So it is just behind There Will Be Blood and just in front of The Hunt, The Departed and Nightmare on Elm Street.
I think that's quite low.
It's a little bit low, but
There we go. So we're going to bring this movie into a joint 16th on our list. It's a top 8 for IMDb. Well, that does bring us towards the end of Burnsy's week, which when Burnsy put out his selection of movies, we were quite surprised at how, well, first of all, how diverse it was, and the fact there was so many good films in there that weren't just football movies. So thank you for putting such a good list out, Burnsy.
Right.
We do obviously still blame the Instagram viewers for selecting what wins, which is always a plus point. You get out of that from there anyway. So, guys, next week's movies are up on the screen right about now. So, movies for next week, if you remember from last Monday, we spun British movies. And do we remember what we've got, guys?
yeah,
Trainspotting and 8 days later.
There we go. Trainspotting
So it's
and...
now Danny Boyle week.
There we go. Danny Boyle week. So we aren't having a Tarantino film, as Sean will be delighted to hear as well. So these films will be reviewed next Monday. We will endeavour to make it Monday. Guys, will we adding in the Laurie's movie to this one as well?
I'm
Hotel
happy.
Rwanda.
Aye.
Hotel Rwanda. We'll reluctantly add in Hotel Rwanda to the list. So guys, please get ahead of the game in the movies. Don't leave them till the last day, so that we're having to watch them all at the one time. So yeah, that is 3 movies going to be coming your way next week as well. We are not, however, going to spin the wheel for what the next category is, as we are on the run up to Halloween. We're going to have 2 weeks specifically designed for Halloween/horror style movies to be out there. We are going through a list at the moment. Daniel has got a comprehensive list of movies to cipher through. There's an awful lot there, isn't there?
There's fucking loads. But as it stands, I think we're going to have some non-scary stuff in there and then try and separate it out into different types of horror movies. Because last time we ended up with Insidious and The Conjuring, which are both very similar, I think, for me. So we'll try and split it up and get some different styles in there.
Just hocus pocus. That's it. That's all we need. Hocus pocus.
I think, looking at one category, I think Hocus Pocus and Ghostbusters, that'll be tight because they're both well loved, but there's a lot of very good stuff in there.
Well, that's it. So the next 2 weeks after this one are going to be Sean's favourite. He loves a scary movie. So we will get on to them. Guys, we are now an hour and a half into the stream tonight. It's a lot longer than what we typically do. Obviously, having a third film does help that. We are going to have our end of stream just now. We will send you across to a